Welcome back to Margaritas in Paradise. Hey, today I'm going to present to you a video. While I was on my trip up to Chiang Mai, I taped a section about a fellow viewer commenting the difference between the Philippines and Thailand. Of course, if you live in the Philippines, I understand that, okay? I've been there a number of times. I've chosen Thailand, and I'm just trying to compare, in my opinion, what's the difference between Thailand and the Philippines. I definitely want your opinion, all right? I know a lot of you guys have been to the Philippines and that, and there's probably all kinds of likes and dislikes about both places. Definitely put them in the comments section below. Let me know what you think. I'll go back to the Philippines, there's no doubt about it, and I'll tell you why later on in the video. But many of you know that secret about me. All right, let's get rolling. I had a guy make a comment on a video I recently did, and I definitely like some input on this. And it's comparing, let's say, the Philippines to Thailand. And I know it's a pretty broad question to ask because there's so much, or so many different things about the two places in general, different countries. You know, my experience isn't much because I've never lived in the Philippines. I've been to the Philippines probably 20 times, but it's always been for short periods of time. At one point I did stay in the Philippines for about 30 days, about 1 month. Most of my trips to the Philippines are in the 1 week to 2 week periods. And in all honesty, the Philippines in general just don't impress me as much as Thailand. So am I being a little bit biased maybe? Versus the other person had made a comment that Thailand doesn't have anything on the Philippines. And I'm just curious, I'm going to tell you a couple of the things that basically make me justify liking Thailand better. But I would like to hear anybody else's comments on what they think, either good or bad, for the Philippines versus Thailand. The number one thing that I probably hear more than anything about, say, the Philippines is the food. 90% of the people that I talk to do not like the food in the Philippines. Now, that is one thing I like. I enjoy all the adobo type dishes and curries and things like that, and just trying new things. So I enjoy the food in the Philippines, but I also enjoy the food in Thailand. So that's not one of the things for me. Now, as many of you probably already know, that I have a daughter in the Philippines, and we can get into that later on in another video. I'm in constant contact with somebody that I love that lives in the Philippines. You know, we used to look at Thailand and the Philippines as third world countries. Anymore, Thailand, it's a developing country. It's way advanced compared to the Philippines in every measure. And I think you could just Google that if you don't believe that. But the Philippines isn't really termed a third world country anymore. They're more termed an emerging market. You can see how the government takes care of their people and the different social status of people in general in the Philippines. And you can compare that to Thailand. In Thailand, they have a more advanced economy. You know, probably in the last 10 years, let's say the last 20 years, from when I first started coming here, we see more cars nowadays than we did at any other time in Thailand. And everybody has a car, but 20 years ago, not everybody had a car, everybody had a motorbike. Now everybody has motorbikes and cars. So you see more cars on the road than ever before. And there's more middle-class people in Thailand than I've ever seen. The poverty level in Thailand probably represented 70% of the population in Thailand, but now the poverty levels have decreased by quite a bit. There's a larger middle class segment in Thailand than there's ever been before. And with that being said, the upper classes have really expanded as well. And it's apparent just by the number of Thais that are involved in business, that you see wearing gold, that you see driving Bentleys or Mercedes or whatever type cars. Thailand still has its poor people. There's no doubt about that. But there are a lot more advanced skill set in Thailand nowadays than there's ever been before, and it's only getting better. When you're talking to young people in Thailand, there's more of them that are speaking not only the English language, Chinese languages, and things like that. Now, one of the things that people talk about in the Philippines is the English language is spoken, and children are taught the English language at school in the lower government schools and secondary education, private schools like Christian schools or Catholic schools. They're also taught English. And I know with my daughter, she's always been in an advanced type class as a 16-year-old. She's in a college prep going to LaSalle University right now in senior high school. Anyway, and with that being said, I have her enrolled in advanced English program at another school because I don't want her to just get by in the Philippines. I want her to thrive. And I'll give you a good example. I asked her what she wanted to do later on in her life, and I know that children will change their minds many, many times. She said, "Oh, Dad, I want to be a flight attendant on an airline." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, no, that's fantastic." I said, "Just out of curiosity, why don't you want to be the pilot?" She just kind of looked at me like, "Well, what do you mean?" And I'm like, it's one thing to be the flight attendant, and there's nothing wrong with that, but why are you holding back? Instead of being the worker, why don't you be the boss and be the pilot? And she just smiled at me because I think she didn't realize what her opportunities are or what's available to her in life. So who knows what she's going to do with her life, but she's a smart kid. She's education driven, and I'm very fortunate with that. I hope it stays with her and she's able to complete not only her university level classes too and succeed. In all honesty, the Philippines is a poor country, and you see it everywhere in your face when you're in the Philippines. I mean, the homeless people sleeping on the street is just staggering, and it doesn't matter whether you're in Manila or Cebu or Angeles City. A lot of foreigners go to. It doesn't matter where you go. I wonder in the villages, I've never really, where my daughter lives, you don't see as many homeless there as you see in the bigger cities. But with that being said, they still have their beggars. Beggars are everywhere. Thailand has their beggars, but they're not in sheer numbers like they are in the Philippines. If you're in Angeles City or Manila and you walk out of your hotel and let's say you're going to a restaurant to eat or something like that, the chances of you being asked for money in the Philippines is probably 100%. And you're probably not going to be asked for money by one or two people or three people. More than likely, you're going to be asked by 10 different people if you're walking any distance at all. That's one of the things that don't get me wrong. I think you should be as generous as you can afford to be, but it is a constant thing in the Philippines, and I just don't see that in Thailand as much. I'm sure there's different areas of the Philippines where you don't have that problem. Hey, if you haven't done so already, make sure that you're giving me a big thumbs up and you're hitting that subscribe button. It doesn't cost anything for a subscription, and you can put in your notifications as far as how often you want to be notified every time I put out a new video or things like that. So anyway, please subscribe. Please hit that like button. All right, thank you. Another thing in the Philippines is the sheer amount of trash everywhere on the streets, even in the kind of the touristy areas, small amounts of paper and things like that along the sides of the streets and the curbs. And in Thailand, the big touristy areas, there's people that are paid to go out and pick up all this trash and literally sweep the streets. Okay, they're out there with brooms and dustpans picking up the streets in Thailand. So the major cities all have street sweepers. Everything in the Philippines, you know, when you're in a big city like Manila, they have their infrastructure, for instance, is better than anywhere else in the Philippines. But I think the overall infrastructure is lacking in the Philippines. It's amazing to me how old do you think the typical Jeep is in the Philippines? Are Jeepies ever updated or advanced or anything like that, you know, or the tuk-tuks or anything like that? I don't think so. Everything looks old and really beat down. They're just maintained, and they get by with what they have. And they look pretty depressing in my book. In Thailand, I don't see that. You know, it's when you compare let's say, bot buses, and now the new thing is all the green energy battery-powered bot buses. And it's probably 30% of all the bot buses in Pattaya, for instance, are all battery powered. I don't know how to impress upon somebody how much more advanced Thailand is, let's say a place like the Philippines, but it really is. Why does the Philippines I can remember 20 years ago when I was going to the Philippines, their utility system still suffers from brownout. Who lives in the Philippines right now that can testify to this? Do you ever have a brownout? Well, that's ridiculous. Why would a country 20 years later still have brownouts? My daughter complains about it all the time. They don't have electricity for an hour or two in the middle of the day. That's crazy. I just don't get it. We don't have that in Thailand. Do we ever lose power? Well, sometimes when we have a big storm, but I'll tell you what, we have storms, and 99% of the time we don't lose power. How often do you lose power in the Philippines? And why isn't their system more advanced? I don't get that. People talk, let's go with storms. How many tsunamis has Thailand suffered from in the last 20 years? What, one, right? So how many typhoons have Thailand suffered from in the last, let's just say, 20 years? And then compare that number to how many typhoons that happen, or tropical storms that happen in the Philippines. It's amazing to me that people want to go to the Philippines or live in the Philippines for extended periods of time with all the tropical storms that happen in the Philippines. Why do people want to go live in the Philippines? And a lot of it has to do the economy or how much things cost, right? What do people end up doing? They go into the Philippines, they go away from the tourist areas in general, and find these sleepy little villages, basically, and are able to afford bigger homes and eat very cheaply and that type of thing. They don't have the same living conditions that they have in Thailand or the bigger cities, okay? And another good case in point would be, how much does your data plan cost you in the Philippines? Let's say if you wanted to have Wi-Fi set up in your home in the Philippines, how much would that cost you? I know this because my daughter has asked me for Wi-Fi in her home many times, all right? But her mother doesn't want Wi-Fi in her home because she doesn't want her daughter online all the time. I gave daughter a phone. She's already on that phone enough. I want to say that the plan that she needs cost her approximately $35, but basically $35 a month to have a data plan in her home in the Philippines. Thailand costs for my Wi-Fi approximately $125 a year. So it's definitely cheaper. Things like Wi-Fi, electricity's cheaper in Thailand. Water is cheaper in Thailand. Phone service is cheaper in Thailand. Although my daughter is constantly, every week, buys loads for her phone. And I don't get that, because give her a certain amount of money every month, and why doesn't she just go ahead and get it for the month? But the thought process in the Philippines is just different than the way I think. And for me in Thailand, because I know it's so much cheaper to go by the year, I will pay approximately $100 for an unlimited plan. I'm sure there's lots more to it, you know. The Philippines is a Christian Catholic, specifically Catholic culture for the most part, although they do have a certain amount of Muslim. In Thailand, it's mainly a Buddhist country, although there is a certain amount of Christian and there's a certain amount of Muslims as well, especially in the south. Laws aren't based on religion in Thailand. Now, they do have, because they are a Buddhist country, they have Buddhist holidays where they follow no alcohol allowed on certain days and things like that. For the most part, you don't have criminal acts that are involving Buddhism. You know, there's laws in place like the selling of artifacts and Buddha images and things like that, or taking Buddha images out of Thailand, for instance. And there's a bunch of rules in place that are probably not necessarily enforced, but they're still there. So regardless of the reason why you may like Thailand over the Philippines, or that you may like the Philippines over Thailand, they're both great places, you know, and it's easy to see why one would become more maybe biased over the other. For me, well, you know what my choice is, but it's not going to keep me from going back and visiting the Philippines. So if you have any reasons why you like one of the countries better than the other, please put it in the comments section below. Let me know. And if there's something that I said that you don't agree with, please let me know about that too. I always appreciate opinion, and everything that I told you is, you know, like I say, I've only been to the Philippines 20 times, so I'm no expert on the Philippines. But those are my opinions and the way I see it. That's all I have for you, and we'll see you later. Bye-bye.